to Moral Side of the News, our weekly discussion of today's top stories from a moral, ethical, and religious perspective. I'm Shawn Kaelin with the WHAS Crusade for Children, and I'm joined today, as always, by a distinguished panel of local religious leaders. Father Bill Hammer, St. Margaret Mary and St. William Catholic Churches. Reverend Dr. Kilen Gray, Creative Spirits Behavioral Health. Reverend Clay Calloway, West Louisville Ministers Coalition. Dr. John Slider, retired pastor, Free Methodist Church, and Rabbi Stan Miles, Louisville Melton School. We begin this week with the United States bombing nuclear facilities in Iran.
President Trump giving the final order for Operation Midnight Hammer last night, a highly classified, top-secret mission that only a handful of U.S. officials knew about, and one that was full of deception. About a dozen B-2 bombers taking off from Missouri early Saturday morning, with a decoy group of about half of them heading west towards Guam, with trackable movements. And while the world was looking the other way, a short time later, 7 more B-2s taking off, but this time heading in the opposite direction, to the east, directly towards Iran, with no transponders and minimal communications. The Pentagon saying the 25-minute mission inside Iranian airspace began at 6:40 p.m. Eastern. A first wave of U.S. fighter jets sweeping in front of the B-2s to protect them from possible enemy missiles and warplanes. Then a lead B-2 bomber dropping the first 2 30,000-pound bunker-busting bombs called the Massive Ordnance Penetrator, or MOPS, on Iran's Fordo nuclear site, buried deep under a mountain.
The remaining bombers then hit their targets as well, with a total of 14 MOPS dropped against 2 nuclear target areas.
Right after those bunker-busting bombs struck, U.S. missiles hitting a third target.
A U.S. submarine in the Central Command Area of Responsibility launched more than 24 Tomahawk land attack cruise missiles against key surface infrastructure targets at Isfahan.
In total, 125 aircraft and 75 precision-guided weapons were used.
Final battle damage will take some time, but initial battle damage assessments indicate that all 3 sites sustained extremely severe damage and destruction.
Iran calling the attack outrageous and a breach of international law, threatening a heavy response and warning U.S. bases in the region are vulnerable to attack. President Trump addressing the nation after the attack, saying Iran must now make peace, warning Iran and its proxies against any retaliation against the U.S., saying the U.S. will hit more targets with precision, speed, and skill.
Tonight I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success.
So panel, last week we spent a lot of time talking about should the United States get involved. They did get involved late Saturday evening. I'll turn it over to you for your thoughts on the involvement.
I just hope that it was a spectacular military success and that the threat of a nuclear war is less than it was prior to Saturday. I guess the one thing about this incursion was it was an incursion specifically of these facilities, and hopefully that there was no other loss of life. It was just property and potential for a horrible outcome.
Yeah, I'll echo that, Stan. And not to add any aura to me, but on a personal level, as my wife and I were watching the reports, she said, "Let's pray," which I felt I should have initiated. I'm the professional Christian, but she said, "Let's pray," and we did, and we prayed for the American military, and then I said, and I'm going to pray for the folks on the ground too, who are recipients of this. I hope, I don't know how, but I hope that there was no loss of life on either side. If there were, it's a tragedy, but it's something. It was a choice between the lesser of several evils.
Well, I mean, anything that this administration does is suspect. You have a man that is a 34-count adjudicated criminal, unrepentant, I might say it, So you can't believe anything he says or does and trust that it's true. First thing. And then he has a lot of people that lie for him, that cover for him, and wrap around in false religion. So you got all that working at work here. So you can't even claim a term, use the term success with anything he does, because it's all suspect. Naturally, we appreciate the minimal impact to the potential loss of life. That's always to be celebrated. God is always on the side of life being saved and preserved. But this is just a terrible miss. And this whole idea about Iran being increasing in the production of nuclear weaponry is the direct result of the president canceling the agreement that was in place, number one, by the Obama administration that was holding Iran in check. We had checks and balances in place. So with the dismantling of that, then you took away the checks and balances that was holding them in check. So it is almost a scenario that was by his own making, his own doing, and then he gets a chance to respond, to give the appearance that he's doing something good in bombing Iran. It's just another episode of just a horrible, horrible episode that we're in with no end in sight. This monster, this man-made, fire-breathing Godzilla of a monster who is at the head of state here, this issuing death through bombs, is just a terrible thing, but it's no surprise at all. So I just pray again that it will come to an end and it will be no worse than it could be, and pray that wiser heads would prevail in being a greater check and balance to this unchecked administration that is involved in death and mayhem.
It is a disturbing development for me to even think about what is true. We're having a current debate, not only politically but culturally, on what is real truth. Are we actually getting facts? Do we really know what has happened? We're in a space where everything within our culture has become politicized between left and right, red and blue. Even now, everything from the press to the courts to all aspects of our democracy are being forced to choose sides on which truth you're going to believe. If you just look right at our news coverage, it's bifurcated and it's politicized to the point where it depends on which echo chamber you listen to every day will determine what is truth for you in spite of the facts. So when truth gets clouded, when our collective idea of what truth is becomes clouded, and we're depending upon news outlets to give us what the truth or what facts really are, it leads to people to questioning what the facts really are. And we see that in the last few days of this of the issue with the bombings. Did it do what the administration actually said it did? This is for the concern of Israel. It's for the concern of the West. It's for the concern of all of us who have serious concerns about what Iran had planned or still has planned with those nuclear warheads that they were trying to develop. Was there devastation or not? That's the current debate that's happening right now. And because of the tenor of the disrespect for facts that has been promulgated by the administration and those that are allies of the administration, we don't know what the truth is. When you have to depend on the truth based on who says it, instead of verifying data that gets dismissed, that for me creates a very fearful prospect. When we are depending upon receiving information and we can't trust the information that comes, we don't know if this is over. We don't know if, yes, there has been damage, but to what extent? We really, really don't know, because we have completely bastardized truth in this country. We don't know what's real, and that's a scary prospect for me.
You know, maybe just to shift the little bit of introducing a little bit of humor, whatever. Again, I'm Father Bill Hammer, and this operation was called Midnight Hammer.
Yeah. Well, you take issue with that. I appreciate that.
I'm with you in that effort.
Protect your good
I don't
name.
think he's ever stayed up past midnight.
Right.
I'm trying to lay, copyright Hammer going in the future.
Trademark that thing.
There's a song by MC Hammer called Hammer Don't Hurt Him. You might
That's right.
play with that, but go ahead now.
But kind of picking up on some of the things here that have been mentioned, there is still right now controversy about exactly what did happen or not. The initial reports from the military said that it set them back now a couple months. And then the president challenged that, and then there's been some figuring out, well, maybe it's been more, and then the CIA just recently came out with saying, well, no, it is devastating, but Iran's replied back, well, we moved it all. You know, we emptied it out. I mean, that's Iran saying, you know, we protected, saved everything because we moved it all, and they have not released. I would be surprised that all three of those sites were completely empty of civilian workers or maybe even military workers, whatever. But I don't have any reports of deaths. But hard for me to believe that if the bombs did what they said they were doing, that they picked three sites with nobody physically present at them. But one of my concerns as well is somewhat of a pattern that I do see where it was announced before the bombing that we were going to enter into 2 weeks of negotiations. It was very public. Yes, well, that was put out there in the public. I read it.
No, that's what the president said.
Yeah.
He said within 2 weeks.
Okay.
I will make a decision.
Oh, but he said we will take 2 weeks.
No.
Well, okay.
He said
then
within 2 weeks.
I interpreted it
I know.
to be 2 weeks of negotiations. Clearly, there was no negotiations, and in the very next day, the bombers are going. And so it is a case where I find there's been other patterns where we say we're going to tariff people in this period of time, and all of a sudden we change that. We say we're going to do this or that, and we change it. And it seems to me it is not a good negotiating tool, or to say after the fact, well, we're not at war with Iran. We're only at war with their nuclear capacity. That's all we're at war with. Well, if Iran fires back and hits one of our military bases, well, they're not at war with America, only at war with that military base. It just seems to me an obfuscation, though, of facts going on in lots of different ways in setting things up for everybody to misunderstand and come back later and said, well, we had to do that anyway. We had to do that. We had to confuse them. We had to give them misinformation. So if they give us misinformation, that's wrong for them, but it's not wrong for us.
Well, it appears to be another cycle going round and round and round in circles. And when you say who's believable, who's trustworthy, we thank God we have some criteria for determining that we trust those that are trustworthy, that are proven to be trustworthy over time. Now, we've seen a lot of information that came from this administration that's proven not to be trustworthy. With the trade deals, we don't have any trade deals yet, as he claimed. We're not sure if even the intelligence community said one thing just before he left with the bomb. The intelligence community said there wasn't no bombs there. They said that. The intelligence community said that. Yep. So he contradicted directly what the intelligence community had claimed was true. So you have that back. And then you have, again, it depends on who you believe. You know, we as who are the clergy and the church and all those in the faith community, we are to be the plumb line, as Amos said. We should be the plumb line and not to follow the party line. And oftentimes they're two different things. And to stand on what is true and what is right, to pursue what is right and true with some criteria and some level of credibility, and call and challenge speak truth to power. At a great risk of our reputation, at great risk of our privilege, we need to tell truth to power. And the religious community has been very derelict in being able to do that because this whole administration has been quite consistent with not being truthful and being credible. And I think this is yet another episode. Things were going so terribly. He had a bad week at his birthday weekend. We had a bad week of listening to those squeaking tank wheels on his parade. it was not a good week with protests sweeping the nation. So you have this happen to kind of give distraction away from the bad attention that was given to his week before that. It just, it becomes apparent. You don't have to interpret it. You can just see that it's what is really taking place and connecting the dots accordingly. So I think it's a time to gut check those who do believe that God is the God of wisdom, and God has given guidance to those who seek his guidance, to just call it the way it is and trust the media. He is always attacking the media. The media was designed to be the friend of the citizens of America. The media was designed to hold power to account. So he's always attacking the credible media sources to discredit them, to give him credibility, when he has no credibility at all. So he uses that attack to do what he's doing. So you see this whole thing just bubbling up and frothing over into what has been a terrible pattern, even going back to the Bush administration when they claimed there was weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Similar claim, but there was none there as well.
Let's move on to the second part of this significant discussion in Middle East development. In the Monday evening of this week, a ceasefire was announced.
This morning, President Trump taking credit after announcing a ceasefire deal between Israel and Iran, saying it would not have been possible without his decision to attack Iran's nuclear facility Saturday night. Trump posting, in a certain and very ironic way, that perfect hit late in the evening brought everyone together and the deal was made. The ceasefire was set to be phased over a 24-hour period, with Iran's foreign minister saying Iran would halt attacks by 4 a.m. local time, but some missiles were launched after that deadline. Before the overnight missile strikes, President Trump said both Iran and Israel approached him seeking peace after 12 days of aerial attacks, and yesterday saw Iran attacking a U.S. airbase in Qatar. But Trump says Iran actually gave the U.S. a heads up. U.S. and Qatari forces seen here intercepting most of the missiles, no damage reported. Israel overnight accepting the ceasefire, saying it's achieved its war goals against Iran. Experts say if the ceasefire does hold, it may cool tensions for now, but it's unlikely to stop Iran's nuclear ambition. And questions linger. Was Iran able to move nuclear material before Saturday night's attack? And what will be the future of the Iranian regime, now trying to save face after Israel killed dozens of its military leaders and nuclear scientists?
So we'll bring it back out to the panel. The ceasefire has been holding now for, as we tape this on Thursday afternoon, over 48 hours, close to 60 hours. What do we make of the ceasefire and the developments? I mean, significant development in the Middle East, I believe, with a ceasefire announced and it holding.
We're looking at a totally different geopolitical landscape in that area. It's totally different because of the decimation of the proxies of Iran. Iran's proxies are no longer a factor at all. Hezbollah, those factions that were in Lebanon, Hamas has been completely decimated. The geopolitical landscape is different.
And to support what you're saying.
And the proof of that difference is the fact of what Israel has been able to do. Because they're able to do, and this has been a conversation for decades about what to do with Iran's missiles. And each successive administration has been thinking about what to do with those. And through the diplomacy where the agreement was prior, where they were able to be nonpartisan or groups to come in and check out Iran's, what Iran was doing. And then we pulled out of that. But I think that
we pulled out, Trump pulled out of that.
And
let's be clear.
Well, the nation pulled out of it because of his leadership. But I mean, that's the reality where we are.
Right.
I mean, we're no longer in that.
Right.
As a nation, we're no longer in that conversation. But I just want us to just take note of the fact that the ceasefire that we're having now is a response to what Israel has been able to do, because Israel has successfully completely obliterated or has diminished greatly all of those threats around its border that they have had to live with for a long time, and it gives them the ability to think differently about how to handle their own national security. The second thing that I'd like to lift up is, my concern as far women and men are in uniform who execute whatever is ordered for them to execute. We don't know what the future is going to hold with that, because we don't really know everything that Iran is doing. And so my prayers are for them wherever they are based around the world. My prayers are for our soldiers, our military that are in harm's way, who in any space the risk to them has just been increased and heightened, and my prayers are with them.
I pray for them. I pray for them fervently. But when I look at a ceasefire, and I heard about it, I had to say, wait, stop. Something's missing. There's a ceasefire. Well and good. But there are still people being held hostage since October 7th, 2023.
Absolutely.
I fear for them. They are still in captivity, being treated abysmally, shamefully, and I pray for their release.
Amen.
They were innocents. They had nothing to do with anything.
That's right.
And on that same hill, the Palestinian citizens, millions, been displaced, killed. They too are innocent.
Yes. Yes, they're not
millions.
Hamas. They're not Hezbollah.
By the millions.
They're
The men, women, and children who have been killed and displaced. They too are innocent.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I'm just grateful that that there's no violence going on right now, and grateful for whatever means got us to that point. You know, I do remain, I don't know what the word might be, skeptical that it will sustain itself for much length of time, but that remains to be seen. And I hope to be recognizing that I was wrong in having that skepticism. Recent, patterns seem to be, but the fact that we are at a point now where there hasn't been anything for 48, 60, whatever, 72 hours, and hopefully by the time it is airing, it hasn't gotten any worse. So that means people are at least able to talk, as opposed to be in defensive positions of seeking shelter, worrying about what's happening in the air over them or in the ground underneath them. And for that, I think that's been one of the positive things that's come out of all of this, is the fact we can step back and look, hopefully, to a change in the future. But it means changing on everybody's part as well.
Well, earlier I was trying to agree with you, Kaelin, and support what you were saying with the proxies. Iranian proxies throughout the world are diminished, weakened. In addition, Iran is diplomatically isolated. You hear nothing really from other, if we can characterize them as Muslim countries. You hear nothing from Russia. Barely anything from Russia and China. Militarily, I'm going to argue they're defeated, and by Israel's work and by American work. I characterize this as the lesser of two evils. I think there is a great opportunity, as you said. Well, you might not have used the term opportunity, but things may shift in the Middle East toward a more peaceful arrangement between countries. Israel may be more secure.
I just read that there will be a new talks on different nations coming into the Abraham Accords.
Yeah. I think after the NATO meeting, I think there was some discussion of European countries being more involved. I'm not reporting. I'm just thinking I heard that. So I think some positives can come out of this. Will come out of this. I'm going to. Well, I'll just leave it at that.
Well, America is positioned himself probably the most imperial country on this globe.
Well,
they got more bases around the world, 800 bases around the world, more than any other country on earth. So they're setting themselves up as an imperial empire globally. One thing. There are many other countries that have nuclear power that have been evil regimes. South Africa has nuclear power. Pakistan, India, others have nuclear powers. none of them had agreements, the kind of agreement that was binding Iran.
And that was unverifiable by the
let me finish
AIE.
Let me finish.
Whatever it is.
So you have many other countries that have nuclear power that were not engaged in a binding agreement that applied to Iran. Iran signed that agreement, but yet we've never signed agreements to hold any other nuclear power in check. So, but in this particular case, it's more of what appears that the America wants, Israel wants to some degree, because we're their greatest ally in that part of the region. And the leadership of both Israel and America, both of them have been suspect for some time now. So
have any other
let me finish.
You've been talking for a long time.
You can only be as good as the head of state. And we clearly have a diminished reliability in this head of state.
I think you've let your hatred take over a lot of your thinking. What other country with a nuclear weapon has said death to Israel?
I don't know about that, but I do know that South Africa had nuclear weapons and they had apartheid.
And they haven't said death to Israel. But they haven't said death to America. But it was an evil regime there that had. And now it is
that had it. Okay, so
what's your point? I don't get it.
My point is, America setting itself as who determines who has or who does not have nuclear weapons. And they have not exercised the same level of control with other countries that have nuclear weaponry. Haven't done it.
But people and nations are at their word. And I have to agree exactly with what John said. Since 1979, the government of Iran has been threatening the United States of America and the state of Israel over and over again with existential destruction. We will destroy you. We will kill you every day, over and over and over again. I don't know any other nuclear nation who has been that vociferous in their destructive hatred against two nations, two people.
And with that in mind, my concern is our diplomatic intelligence. Now, I hope that we have the right people that can make the type of agreements of this new climate that we're in that knows exactly what they're doing, and I don't have that confidence.
On that, we'll have to end it for this week. Thank you for a great discussion this week. Father Bill Hammer, St. Margaret Mary, and St. William Catholic Churches. Reverend Dr. Kaelin Gray, Creative Spirits Behavioral Health. Reverend Clay Calloway, West Louisville Ministers Coalition. Dr. John Slider, retired pastor, Free Methodist Church. And Rabbi Stan Miles, Louisville Bible School. Thanks for watching Moral Side of the News this week on WHAS TV and WHAS Radio. Join us all for next week for an all-new Moral Side of the News.